they're a child and they're viewing the world through a child's lens. And so it literally could be something like, Chris, you go to one of your other kids who got an A on their math test and you said, wow, this is amazing. I'm so proud of you. And then one of them's watching in the background and belief goes into their mind. Now, if I do well at school, my dad will recognize who I am.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of The Pursuit of Purpose. My name is Chris Kiefer, and today I am with Rob Kalwarowsky. Thank you so much, Rob, for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Chris. I'm excited to talk purpose, bad bosses, and mindset.
Yeah. So I stumbled across Rob when I just went to the TEDx Spokane event a couple weeks ago, and he was commenting on Greg Kettner's LinkedIn post, and I looked at your LinkedIn profile, and a couple of things jumped out at me, which we'll get into. But I see that you're now a leadership coach at Elite Coaching, and you did a TEDx talk yourself, which is something that I have on my horizons to do. And you're also the co-host of a podcast. And then as I started researching, I found out we both played college sports. You're water polo. I played basketball. We're both engineers. I got an engineering science degree with an emphasis in mechanics, and you got a mechanical engineering degree. And then I also was just like, oh my gosh, this is nuts. In like 2018, you started a podcast after listening to Gary Vee, and we're like, let's just do a podcast. And that's The Pursuit of Purpose. I think I started it was either 2018 was like at the very end of the year, November 2018. And I varied in consistency, but so much fruit has come from just doing podcasting, getting out there. For me, someone actually just asked me the other day, why did you start a podcast? And I can go into those answers, but I'm curious for you. You heard Gary Vee say that, like, do a podcast. What in the beginning, what were you hoping to get out of a podcast? And did that reason for continuing to podcast, how has that evolved?
Yeah, so when Gary Vee was talking about it, he was talking about it like everyone should have a personal brand and you can use this to pivot your career or to, up-level your career, get hired, all these things. And I started a podcast in 2018. It was actually a reliability engineering and maintenance podcast. And for me, that was what I was working in heavy industry. And what I was trying to do with that show was really to get out of corporate and start a consulting company. It was really just me, but basically get consulting gigs or get better jobs. And now, like, I stopped doing that podcast after about 2.5 years and 165-ish episodes. And then we started the Leadership Launchpad podcast. Now we're just coming up to 150 episodes. So it's been about 3 years. And that one for me, it's growth. We also, we're using it to build brands and try to get business in the door. But the biggest thing that I have loved over 5 years of podcasting has been the folks you meet, the connections you build, and the things you learn by hosting a show. Because you can have on anybody and ask them awesome questions and learn the things you want to learn.
Totally. I've always said, like, I'm 100% in the same boat. Right now I have a automation consulting business. So we do, like, connecting the various apps that businesses use to streamline and eliminate data entry. And it's a very specific niche that I'm in right now, which is painting businesses. So, like, I've worked with 12 painting businesses doing this thing. And when I tell people about it, they're like, oh, cool. And what does the Pursuit of Purpose have to do with that? And I'm like, from the outside, realistically, it's not like a lead pipeline for me. But I swear, especially as I've gotten more intentional about who I'm having on and what is interesting to me and what's relevant in my life right now, every single episode I've done, I've learned stuff either that directly impacts the way I lead or coach or whatever, or there's like some random analogy from some other industry, and I'm like, oh, I could take that, and it inspires some other idea within my world. But the people that you meet is just incredible. And it's like, I've always said, how many people would, if you just got a message and someone was like, that you didn't know, was like, hey, would you mind coming to coffee so I could just ask you about what you do, whatever. People would say I might, depending on who the person is. But if someone was like, hey, can I have you on my podcast? Immediately there's just, and I believe that it's the podcast host leveraging the other person's time and scaling that, whatever you talk about, who knows what it's going to be, but it's benefiting both the podcast host and that other person, getting more credibility and getting out there online. And as Gary Vee says, the long tail of the internet. It's amazing that you can have this conversation, post it, and 6 years later, someone could stumble across it and be like, hey, I saw you on the Pursuit of Purpose podcast talking to Chris about whatever, and it has value, as opposed to a coffee date, which is literally a waste of an hour for both of you, in my opinion, now that I do podcasting. So anyways, yeah, any other comments on the podcasting world?
I would just say you're totally right, Chris. And you can ask people that you wouldn't even dream that they would come on your show, and some of them will say yes. Not all of them, of course, they're busy folks, right? But some folks will say yes. Like we had Dr. Richard Schwartz on the podcast. He invented internal family systems therapy. He's one of the top therapists in the world. And it's like, he said yes, right?
That's awesome.
We had Kim Scott, who wrote Radical Candor. She came on the podcast. Like, these are folks that have big followings and do great things, and they say yes. And it's, other folks say no, and that's totally fine. But if you were asking those people to go to coffee with you, 100% of the time they would say no.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, are you kidding me? I've got way too much stuff going on I don't even know who you are. That's awesome. So diving into mindset work, first of all, I think I would encourage anyone that wants to hear more of your backstory. I'm a big believer in, it's like, I know you've told the backstory many times. You do have an incredible, how you got to where you are. And the only thing that I want to point out is it was really like 5 years ago-ish that you decided, I'm going to shift and go this direction. And since then, I guess to me, 5 years might seem like a long time for some people, but I'm also like, it's amazing how radically you can change your life in a 5 year. And then obviously even in a 2 year period, you've now, there was already radical change, and now you've just continued to grow. And by working through your mindset and these limiting beliefs or things that affected you as a child that you didn't realize. So what I would love to dive into is how, I think if I'm saying this correctly, you said on another podcast that we all have like a 7-year-old, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, our 7-year-old self trying to make business decisions for us as 30, 40, 50-year-old, professionals. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. So when I talk about mindset, I love to use the analogy of it's our brain's operating system. And so it's the rules, the beliefs, all the behaviors, these type of things that our subconscious mind uses to make decisions and to behave in the world, so then we are safe and alive. And so when I talk about those things, right, I'm talking about like subconscious decisions and choices we make. And so these actually are 95 to 97% of the decisions we make every day are subconscious. And so that means we're not thinking like, oh, how do I put my sock on? Or how to, like in basketball, you weren't thinking consciously about, I must dribble the ball
Right.
or I got to put my left foot forward when I'm running and then my right foot. It just sort of like happens, muscle memory. And those are things we talk about as athletes, but it's subconscious patterns that our brain has learned. And so even another great example I use is we've all driven to work or we've driven to the store, and then we got there and we go, oh crap, how did I get here? And how many red lights did I run at that time? Right? And that's our subconscious mind. Like, we know where we want to go and it just takes us there. Right? And it's that subconscious part of our brain and the beliefs that it has, you've basically developed the vast majority of it from when you're born to 7 years old. And so what I say is, I'm born in 1988, so my brain is running Windows 1995. But now my hardware is 2023 computer. Like I have a wife, I have a dog, I do TED Talks, I coach leaders. Like, the responsibilities are incredibly different than what I had when I was 7, where I didn't have a job and
Right.
I didn't really have any responsibility other than like going to school or something. Right. And so it's totally normal that our operating system or our mindset may not be perfect for our new responsibilities and our new roles. And so the work of mindset is starting to identify which beliefs do we have in our mind that are outdated, and then being strategic about updating those rules in order so we can perform our best today and then also going forward into the future.
Yeah.
And
love
it's just running that Windows update that nobody likes to do, but we all have to do.
Right. So I want to try and make this very tactical or practical for the listeners. I remember hearing about like, what are they called? Like affirmations and, the stuff you talk to yourself about. And I'm kind of playing devil's advocate. I have now been working with a coach, but I'm trying to go back to the first time I heard about mindset or whatever. It's just, to many people, I could be projecting, and maybe people don't think this, but they hear it and they're kind of like, oh gosh, another like, you just gotta, visualize and everything will come to, come to fruition and stuff. And it's like, first of all, I think that I'm like just scraping the tip of the iceberg on like how much more impactful this will be in the coaching that I'm getting from our coach. But I'm curious, did you go through a period of like hearing about it and being like, oh, that's probably not going to benefit me that much, or like I don't really see how that's gonna what will that actually change in my life? Did you go through a period of kind of discrediting or feeling like it wasn't relevant or practical for your situation?
Yeah. So it was before I hired my coach. I started and sort of like in that period where, I was listening to Gary Vee and I was listening to these other folks that talk a lot about mindset and success and like these things. And they're saying like, get up in the morning, write 5 things in a gratitude journal, get up at 5 o'clock, do affirmations. And I did all that stuff and nothing changed. And I was like, I don't get it, right? Well, I mean, I don't get it. I was just like, this stuff doesn't work. And actually, if you actually look at the research, affirmations don't really work because if you have the belief that like, I don't know, I don't deserve to have money or something, then just telling yourself that you are rich is not actually
the subconscious
helping
part
you do
still
anything.
circumventing it. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't help you do anything and actually can trigger feelings that are more catastrophic. So for folks out there, if you do affirmations and it makes you feel bad about yourself, stop doing them. It's not helping you.
Right.
Now, if it makes you feel better, great, keep doing.
Right.
But the mindset work, the reason that I talk about this, Chris, is it's not just about like the mindset stuff is deeper than just a lot of the surface level stuff. And it's not just about like, hey, you can do this quick tool and bang, a Ferrari will land on your driveway, right? Like when I first heard that movie about manifestation, I was like, oh, so you just like, read this book and imagine and envision a Ferrari landing in your driveway and it'll happen, right? That's bullshit.
Right.
But how I describe it now is starting from those 95 to 97% of decisions you make every day that you're not even aware of. Those decisions are coming from the beliefs in your operating system that are running, and those beliefs drive the decisions that you're making every day that you're not aware of, which also drive your results. And so let me put it this way. This is like, let's say you're you're browsing on LinkedIn and you see a posting for a job and you look at it and, maybe you're qualified with 5 out of the 10 things. Someone who believes subconsciously, hey, maybe I'm not good enough, or I don't deserve this, or I'm not an expert, or maybe you have some imposter syndrome where you're like, yeah, you know what, like maybe I don't belong. You're not going to apply to that job. And it's not going to be this huge decision that you're like battling about. It's just, you're just going to look at it and
move
go,
on.
Yep, move on, next one, right? Where the person who strategically updated their mindset and says, you know what, this is where I want to go as a leader. This is who I am. I bring value to whatever position I have. And you know what, maybe I don't have those 5 other things, but I can learn those things because I can learn anything. That person just hits the submit button and then moves on, right? And it's those decisions. They're small, but they happen every single day. And it could be something like you're deciding whether to ask that person out, whether you want to make 10 sales calls, whether you want to go to the gym in the morning. Like, it's all of these small decisions. But I think about it just as like you're stepping up to the plate in baseball and you're swinging the bat.
Right.
If you never swing the bat, you're never going to hit the ball. But if you take 1,000 swings, even if you're like a bad baseball player, you're going to hit the ball like maybe 100 times.
Right. Yeah. So what is the I love the operating system analogy, and I have 4 kids and the oldest is almost 6. So I'm like, oh geez, I'm sorry, Ellie. Probably screwed you up. And now I've got 1 year to put the finishing touches on that 7-year-old operating system. But my thought goes to, first of all, what is the, like, part of me feels like, and this is something that's been a discussion with my wife and I, of like, we've gone back and forth on like, how do we make sure we don't screw up our kids? My current belief, like as of this moment, is that no matter what you do, you're giving your kids a system to operate on, and there's pros and cons to every single system. And no matter who you are, no matter how great your parents are, they're going to give you things that are blessings and things that are curses or whatever you want to call it. And it's every person's job to process and think, what am I doing subconsciously that my parents maybe intentionally or unintentionally taught me? And is this serving me with my goals and vision that I have for my life? Would you agree with that or modify any of that? And now a quick word from our sponsor, which is Boolean Review. Boolean is a review software that my wife and I own, and we sell this software to home service businesses. So I know there are many different people that listen to this podcast, but if you know someone, an electrician, an HVAC business, a painting company, maybe a coffee stand, someone that is providing service to customers and get found online by customers, we would love to talk to them. This is a review software that is the highest converting review software in the home service space in particular. And if you're wondering what that means, if you have 100 clients in your business, the typical business gets between 1 to 2% of those customers. So for every 100, they would get 1 person or 2 people to leave them a review on Google. Other review softwares get between 3 and 5%, and the Boolean review software gets 20% of your customers to leave you Google reviews. And these are fantastic Google reviews with lots of words, keywords that are going to help with SEO, pictures, stories, the names of your employees. So if you want to learn more, check out booleanreview.com. And now back to the episode.
That's totally right. There's absolutely no way that you can program, if you would say that, the like perfect mindset into a kid, because they're going to go to school, they're going to have friends at school, they're going to interact with teachers or other people's parents or coaches in sports, and even the thing, if you consider it this way too, is they're a child and they're viewing the world through a child's lens. And so it literally could be something like, Chris, you go to one of your other kids who got an A on their math test, and you said, wow, this is amazing. I'm so proud of you. And then one of them's watching in the background and goes, Belief goes into their mind. Now, if I do well at school, my dad will recognize who I am. And it wasn't even with that kid. It was like a completely different thing. And you didn't mean anything like that. You were just like, this is awesome. You got an A in your math test, right? But it's like they process it in a way that a child sees the world. And so it's not that it's bad. There's no way to really mitigate this. Like you could have two psychologists as parents. They're still their kid is still gonna form beliefs. But you're totally right, is once we know this, we can start to foster an environment where our kids can be emotionally aware, which allows them to start identifying their mindset. And then you can teach them the autonomy and the self authorization to sort of look at their mindset and be like, does this make sense?
Right.
And then that when they're young, like they're obviously probably not doing mindset work when they're 7, but as they develop into teenagers, that's when they can start to actively choose how they want to believe. And then, when they're our age, right, like mid-30s, they're not going to necessarily worry as bad.
Right. So do you have is it possible to take me or the listeners on give someone like the sample of what we were talking about? Like when you're working on your unconscious beliefs, first of all, what do you call those? My coach calls them unconscious drivers, UCDs. How do you refer to these things that are programmed into us subconsciously? What are those referred to as, and can you say, okay, for example, think of a time blank and walk us through an example for someone to be like, oh, I could see how this could affect me.
Totally. I call them beliefs.
Okay.
They can be supportive. They can be limiting, right? These are their beliefs. They're not necessarily these elements of, they don't have a good or a bad. Everyone has beliefs. Now, the way I like to explain this to folks is just imagine you're sitting at a stoplight and there's a person in front of you. Light turns green. That person doesn't go anywhere. You start to get frustrated, right? Like we all have that. Like we're mad because they're not going. And that's the opportunity to learn about your beliefs, right? And we talk about using red flag feelings or red flag emotions to understand the beliefs that are not supportive to us. And so this is like frustration, anger, sadness, anxiety, stress, like these type of emotions. And so if we're sitting at a stoplight, the guy doesn't go in front of us. Now it's starting to understand, what does this situation mean about me that's making me frustrated? Because if we look at it from this logical, high level point of view, even if the person took 1 full minute, which would be insane, it would change our life absolutely nowhere. Like nothing would matter. Like if we were late for a meeting, we'd still be late. We'd be 1 more minute late. Who cares, right? It would not change our life at all. But 1 minute would be like this huge amount of time that would make no sense. But let's just say that, right? So logically, we shouldn't be impacted at all by them not going immediately. And yet we're frustrated. And so it's never about, and we always coach it through this lens of what's triggering me to feel upset. And you would say, naturally, when folks start doing this work, they would say, well, the person in front of me is not going. That's why I'm frustrated. It's never that. It's always the next step underneath that. What does it mean about me?
So if I were to answer, I'm just going to go down this, and you can question me, but I would say if I was frustrated, the deeper reason why would be because I'm worried about being late to pick up my kids from, wherever they're at school or their grandparents' house. And I guess that matters because people, people look at me as oh, Chris is always late or he's disorganized. And I'm trying to think even deeper than that. How, and do you just keep going until it's like, well, why does being a minute late mean you're, not as valuable as someone else? It's like my mom was always late, and I remember people making fun of, Mary Kiefer time and or whatever, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to be late. Is that the right process, or is there more to it?
That's the right process. Now you don't have to go back to childhood, right? But ultimately, we want to get to a statement: I am or I am not something. And in general, it boils down to usually one or two statements of something like, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm powerless, I'm rejected, I'm not accepted, I'm not seen, I'm not heard, I'm not loved. Basically, usually boils down to one of those. There are slightly few more, but it's basically one or two of those kind of 10 statements. And all of us as humans have, I would say, usually two or three of those that really impact us. Of course, all the rest of them do in different situations, but there's generally two or three that are very much at the core of who you are. And for me, I'm not accepted or I don't belong. They're kind of similar statements, but those are the ones that really drove me to achieve in the classroom, then in the pool, then at work, and then ultimately led to the mental health problems that I had. And then healing that, I'm not accepted, allowed me to change my life drastically and what I do.
Got it. Um, yeah. So then you take this to. I love that it all boils down to the same. At the end of the day, I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. I completely resonate with that. You're worried about being an outsider, not in with everybody else. But yeah, it's the projections of what I would say. I'm trying to think. Is that peers, like the concern of peers, or is it more of just like it could be deeper, I guess, of just like you genuinely don't believe that you have worth? Like that
For
could be,
acceptance?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately it's self acceptance. But acceptance started with my dad and then it was with peers, right? So it's like I always felt this need when I was in various places was to prove that I belonged. And I could prove that I belonged through getting results. So, like in school, if I got an A, I proved I was belonging in the classroom. In the pool, if I proved that I was playing well by scoring goals or playing well, then I proved I belonged on the team. And so, like, and obviously, belonging is a social need that we've always had because if you're not part of the tribe, you're dead. So, it's a very strong need that we've, like, genetically predisposed to needing.
Mm. Love that. So let's go take this into the next layer of like, so you're coaching people with the like working through this. How long of a process does this typically take? Is it like, I'm assuming that it's probably, is it a formula? Is it like I'm telling myself it's not like you do 6 meetings and then you overcome everything in your life. It's very flexible and variable depending on the person and whatnot and their career. But yeah, tell me what is like, what does this process look like when you're actually working with an entrepreneur or a person? I guess they don't necessarily have to be an entrepreneur, I would assume.
Totally. So we work from folks. I have one-on-one clients from C-suite executives, entrepreneurs to an Olympic gold medalist to folks that just want to be better at their job, right? Like and then we do group coaching as well. So we have folks, individual contributors to folks who run, you know, multi-thousand person organizations. But I mean, basically, the process, we do some of that work that I walked you through, like the very much getting in tune with your emotions, understanding which beliefs impact you, that type of stuff. That's very much easy for me to give to someone and dig into it at their house. But since since about a year ago, we've started to incorporate internal family systems in our coaching process. And the reason I love this is I don't need to know anything about your childhood for me to do this work with you. And it also works faster and is more effective than the conscious reframing of beliefs. And
so what is that's the internal? It's called internal family structure,
internal family
systems. So what is that? Or to give me a snippet into that world.
Yeah, and so basically, have you seen the movie Inside Out by Pixar?
Yep.
Yeah, so it's similar to that idea where you have a control panel that drives you, and these little characters drive you at various moments throughout your day. And the subtle difference, I suppose, compared to the Pixar movie is what drives you basically can fall into 3 categories. It can be these hurt child parts, like, the ones that form those beliefs, like I'm not good enough or I'm not worthy. Basically, it was an event in our childhood where we felt unseen and we felt pain. And those are the ones that can drive us in some moments. Most of the time, we're being driven by what's known as protectors or defenders. They defend the child parts from being hurt. And so these are the behaviors that many folks have around people pleasing or working too hard or overachieving, or even something like I'm sad, so I eat some ice cream in front of my TV and watch, Love Island or something, right? Like, to extreme behaviors like addiction, suicide, even like very extreme stuff. Those are those defenders. And then there's self, which is who you truly are, stripped away of all the sort of the nonsense programming that you've learned. And this self, the ultimate goal of internal family systems is to allow self to lead the system more. So you are driving the bus, not either the defense or the hurt. It's just you.
That's awesome. So what has been the most surprising thing for you in this, I guess we'll say the last 5 to 6 years? What has surprised you most personally on the journey that you've been on?
I think you set it up top, is the speed. And like literally, it's been 4 years since I started doing the internal work for me. And I'm not saying it was easy, and I'm not saying I didn't throw everything I had at it. Like I probably did, 250 therapy sessions and 100 coaching sessions, and I did certifications and a bunch of different things, right? But I transitioned careers. I spoke at TED in a new field. I moved to Costa Rica in April with my wife. I got married and I bought a dog. Like, these are things that I never would have done because I didn't believe that I could have these things. And it's sort of like this belief of not being accepted is like, I didn't date a lot in high school or college because I kind of had this thing where I was like, why would they want to be with me? I mean, these beliefs impact our lives in wildest ways, right? Like I had a belief that I couldn't live in somewhere tropical because, my parents were like, you need a stable job and you need to work for a company, and the best companies and the best stability you're going to find is Canada and US, right? And it's like this whole, like I work fully remote now, so I can move to Costa Rica, or even like buying a dog. Like I didn't believe I could buy one because my parents were like, we're allergic to dogs. And it's like, it's a stupid belief, right? And like, I'm 35, like I should be able to do whatever I want, right? But it's like, it can take folks some work to make those decisions, because for a lot of our lives, we've learned to sort of listen to authority figures, right? So like in elementary school, sit there, listen to the teacher, do what they say. In sports, go to practice, listen to what your coach tells you to do and do it, right? And that's what you learn. And then when you're an adult, you're like, nobody's telling me what to do.
Yeah. I remember this is a couple different things making me think of. A friend of mine was just telling me that he's like, "Do you know, Chris, that you are allowed to climb Mount Everest?" He's like, "You're allowed to do it. Like if you want to go climb Mount Everest, like you get the resources together and get the team, like you are allowed to do that. No one's going to stop you." And it's like, it's funny to have someone just like give you permission for something so like I have no desire to do it, but it's kind of like there's something that then you're making me think like that is crazy that when someone says that to you, how do you should reflect on how do I sound, how do I feel about that statement? Like for you, if you hear that, did you have any unconscious part of you that was like, I've never actually thought about doing that before, or like I've always assumed that wasn't for me. But you like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've never thought about climbing Everest. I don't think it's for me, but it's a great point, right? And this is what we call self-authorization. And we're conditioned to sort of not have this, right? Like I talked about the school and the coaches and stuff, right? And a lot of what I do now with internal family systems is giving folks access to self, which is minus all the crap we've learned, and so you can make better decisions. And then what we do is we project forward, and we do some of this future visualization work, but it's like, who do I want to be? What's the legacy I want to leave on the world? Who's that person that would inspire me to become this person? And then you start making decisions towards that. And so it's like when I started doing this work, I was seeing myself as like, I could speak on a stage. And so I didn't just magically hit the TED stage. I hired a speaking coach. I worked on a talk. I applied to events. Like I did the work to get there. And so it's not magical manifestation, but it's you're programming your subconscious mind to make decisions in alignment with the person you want to become. And that means you do the work. That means that the more, and again, it's more swings you take towards the right direction. Like I didn't apply to one TEDx event and get accepted. I applied to like 30 and then I got one, right? And so it's like you have to do the work to get there. But if you have those 95 to 97% of decisions aligned with that person you want to become, you're making small decisions every day that walk you to that path.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think. Oh yeah, so I love the idea of. And I'm trying to remember which book this was, but or I think it was Dr. Benjamin Hardy. The 10x is easier than 2x. Have you read that book?
Yeah.
And Dan Sullivan together, but I was listening to Dr. Benjamin Hardy on another podcast, and he was talking about how so often we project from our current self, and we're like our current self is telling us the answer or the way or the method for this future self that doesn't exist yet. And he used this example of like, think about something that has happened in the last year that you feel like is actually, it's crazy. Like never in your wildest dreams did you think that this would happen. And it could be something small or big, like whether it was a purchase or meeting somebody or having a conversation with someone. And it's like, that just happened in a 1 year period of time. And if you would have asked your 1 year ago self how to make happen what happened, they wouldn't have the answers because they don't, it does, like you don't know how to do something. So when you have this vision for your future self, like, then this is like a weird, I felt like it was like Inception. Like you're supposed to project yourself into that future state or person and give your, like have that person tell you what to do. And that was like, it was hard for me to conceptualize this, but I get it that it's like reach or like have that person give you advice and try to put like, at least it's just like another way of seeing, it's trying to uncover the beliefs that you have about what yourself right now and give direction from that other place. And I feel like while I would have at first told you that was impossible to do because you're not that person, it's like in a way just uncovering that belief that is limiting you that you didn't realize it. And it's kind of just a creative thought exercise to do it.
Totally. I can send you a track actually to help you do that. But But it's very much that way, right? When I talk or when I teach folks about like the legacy that they want to leave and start to work on who do they want to become that leaves that legacy, often it's helping them think bigger because we have these like often people start, they're like, well, I would like to be like 5 rungs up the ladder in my current company, right? And then it's like, oh, you know what? I don't actually need that. I could do something different, or maybe I'm pulled towards, climbing Everest, right? But maybe like I can't go and do it today. Like I would have to train, I would have to get a team, I'd have to figure out how to do it. But if it calls to you, that's the first reason. Then you can put the plan in place. Like honestly, once you know what you're supposed to do, like the plan is the easy part.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also think that just using that Everest analogy again, because it is like an absolutely ridiculous feat to think about. But if you state that's what my goal is, it's another one of those things that I don't know what's the fastest time that someone ever conceived of climbing Everest to doing it, but it's probably a couple of years. You know what I mean? Like something that is impossible to so many people is actually possible within a very like short amount of time. And it's like, if it's not that, is it starting a business? Is it having kids? Is it traveling the world, going to this vacation spot, like buying the dream car or the house or whatever? It's like you start to state this is where I want to be, and then you put the motion. Like it just is. I love the Everest one again, just because it's like clearly it's like I need to find someone that knows a hell of a lot more than I do. Whereas like some other domain of your life, you might feel like it's like you can do it yourself, but it's like, why would you not get a coach for any goal that you have that can help you make that journey a little less stressful, a little less painful, and just get there? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you'll speed up your results. But you're
Yeah.
100% right, Chris, is like within 5 years, there's a guarantee. If you really wanted to climb Everest, you can make that happen.
Right. Totally. All right. So keeping an eye on the time here, moving towards the wrap up questions. Do you have 3 book recommendations for us?
Absolutely. Yeah. So first one I would totally recommend. It's on internal family systems, but it'll give you a framework on your life and the voices you hear in your head and the reasons you do certain things that you do. And I would totally recommend the audiobook because the audiobook has bonus meditation exercises after each chapter. So totally recommend that.
And what's it called?
It's called No Bad Parts by Dr. Richard Schwartz. And then next book is The 7 Rules of Power by Jeffrey Pfeffer. Would totally recommend this one for folks who want to advance their careers. So Jeffrey Pfeffer is a Stanford professor in their business school, and he's a world-renowned expert on power. And basically he'll outline 7 ways for you to gain power. And then you can start putting together strategic plans in order to advance your career or even advance other things outside your career. But I find it very insightful and helpful for folks if you, especially with what we are taught about our careers, we're not always taught the things that actually work.
And what's the book called again?
7 Rules of Power.
7 Rules of Power.
And the last one I'll give to folks is called The Untethered Soul. And let me just pull up who wrote this. Michael Allen Singer. But it's another book that will sort of give you a new perspective on the things that are happening in your mind. And so it talks a lot about the chatter and these other voices that you'll hear and how to distinguish and quiet some of those voices in order for you to fully step into yourself. And so it's another great book for folks who are going down their leadership journeys.
Awesome. And favorite movie?
So this is going to be funny because it's not even a real movie, but for the TEDx talk, we actually invented a movie called Global Destructive Factor. And it stars Jean-Claude Van Damme, Sylvester Stallone, and Kylie Minogue. And so
When you say we, who's we?
Yeah, my speaker coach, me, and her team. Yeah, we invented a movie. We use it to talk about destructive leadership, and as also to bring humor and some jokes. So you can't get it, but definitely watch it.
What's the name of it again?
Global Destructive Factor.
Did you guys make like a movie poster or anything for it?
Yeah, we have a movie poster. It's in the TEDx slides, and also I have a T-shirt with the movie poster printed on the front of it. And when we were getting it printed, the person at the printing shop was like, "You can't use this. This is copyright. This is copyright. Like it's a film poster." I was like, "No. We made this up."
That's funny. No. This is my movie. Did you try and like submit it to IMDb and stuff?
I haven't, but I got to do this. That's a good one.
I think anyone can. You should you have to go make an account and stuff, but that would be pretty funny. You can upload like the poster, and you can list yourself as the director and stuff. I only know this because I made a documentary on an Ironman participant, so we had to go. It was a real movie, but from what I could see, even if there's no link to the actual file, it still can exist.
I'm totally doing this.
That's awesome. You send me the link and we'll link it in the movie here. Anyways, Rob, this was super fun. Thank you for taking your time to share some insights. If someone wants to get in touch with you, what is your preferred method of them reaching out?
Totally. Well, first, thanks for having me on the show, Chris. This was fun. And for folks, you can check out my podcast wherever you're listening to Chris's show. You can subscribe, Leadership Launchpad Project. Just hit or Google it on whatever platform you're listening to it. Check that one out. To contact me, best is LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, Rob Kalwarowsky. I'm connected with Chris and Greg Kettner if you're trying to find me. And you're welcome to shoot me an email, rob@elitehighperformance.com. I'm available there. I'm giving away 5 free coaching sessions. So if you want to start doing some mindset work, I've had some clients literally make some shifts in 2 weeks. So some of it can come pretty quickly. So if you want to do a free mindset session with me, just reach out, rob@elitehighperformance.com, and we'll book that.
Awesome. Rob, well, again, looking forward to seeing this movie on IMDb and also your TED Talk. So do you have like a list of like where you're going to distribute the link to your TED Talk once it's published? Like, can you put me on an email list to be like, hey, it's live, and just send it to me? Because I'd love to see it.
Absolutely. I'll put you on my email list later this afternoon. We'll talk to you soon. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. My name is Chris Kiefer, and my mission is to champion the relentless pursuit of purpose. And what that means to me is to be an example, a champion, someone that is in the trenches, working and showing and winning and trying and failing in how to pursue a deeper and more meaningful life with the people that I love, with my kids, with my friends, with our family, and also just be a champion and example of entrepreneurship and following my passion and doing what I believe I'm called to on this earth. And so if that inspires you in some way, please share this episode. If you want, like, subscribe, share, whatever, do all the stuff. It means the world to me to get this message and get these guests that I have out there. And if you're interested in any of the book recommendations or looking up other episodes, the movie list, you can visit my website, chriskiefer.com, for all the details on the show, and also check out the Boolean review software, as well as the Boolean automation consulting company that I own for home service businesses. So thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next episode.